Okay, well, when, when he came, he was full of anxiety. He in every way. So our primary concern was to get him to relax and calm down. So when we train a horse, our primary goal is for the welfare of the horse, to get him in balance and relax and doing things right, and also the safety of his rider. So the safety of his rider depends on him being comfortable physically and mentally. So he was very stiff. So the first thing we did was get him to flex laterally in the pole. This is extremely important. See, he gives very soft laterally at the pole behind the ears, left and right. If he can't do this, he'll lock his jaw on the bit and grab the bit and be high-headed, which is what he did. He was very afraid of a bit. And he's only afraid of the bit because he didn't understand the bit. He doesn't understand that the left rein talks to his left front foot and the right rein talks to his right front foot. And we never use two reins at once because that would confuse him. So we got him to flex laterally at the pole. He must lower his head from a very soft touch of the rein. So see, when Jody touches the bridle, he takes his head down. So he gives very softly in the pole. So there's no resistance in the pole. And that's going to help him not be high-headed and inverted. He traveled very inverted. If we just let him out to his paddock, he inverted himself, which means he's damaging his own body and producing lactic acid in his muscles, which, of course, we don't want. So when we get him laterally bending, lowering the head to each rein very softly, if we just touch the rein, he gives and lowers his head. Then we want to make sure he can bend through the ribs and put his inside hind leg under his center line. So Jody said, every day Jody ground works him before she gets on. He must bend through his entire spine, not just bend in the neck. So you see, he puts his left hind leg forward and under his center of balance. So when he puts his inside hind leg under his center of balance, I said, Jody, kind of put your whip over where his center of balance is. Up. Yeah, like above him. So his center of balance is like right behind the horn. So we need him to put his inside hind leg when he turns or bends under that spot of his body. If he doesn't, he loses his balance, his head goes up, and he gets very reactive. So in the video that we got of him, every time he turned, he was pulled out of balance and fell on his shoulder. So his head goes up and he gets very anxious. So the biggest thing to make him calm is to make sure that when he bends and turns, he puts his inside hind leg under his center of balance. So we do that on the ground first, and then we're going to do it under saddle. So Jody might spend 5 minutes every day just bending him through the ribs and the pelvis and making him more supple and light in the bridle. So when he does this, he learns to be softer in the bridle. The other problem, because he was so afraid of the bridle, when he came, in order for us to find out what the problems were, we had to put him in a snaffle. In a snaffle, when you ride a horse, you find out how much they know or don't know. When you ride them in a shank, it covers up a lot of what they don't know because the shank is very forceful and can even be hurtful to the horse, create an uncomfortable situation for the horse. So he might seem safe when he's trail ridden in a big shank because you have enough force and muscle to make him submit. But when you put the snaffle in, the horse doesn't have to submit. Then he's governed by his level of knowledge. So when we rode him in the snaffle, he was totally uncontrollable. He had no knowledge at all of the bridle. So we've put him in the snaffle to try to help him understand how the bridle works and the reins work and the rider's seat work, so he's not controlled by the force of a big bit. All right, so let's go ahead and mount. Okay, we always teach horses to mount from the mounting block because it saves their back. We try not to mount if we can avoid it from the ground because it pulls on the horse's back too much. So she's going to walk the horse around and just relax him. He should lengthen the top of his neck, lift his back, put his nose down, and get a very rhythmic 4-beat walk. So right here his nose is up a little bit. She's going to massage it in there. He's softened down. So we want him to go in a very soft posture. There, he softens down. And she softens him down by having him in a slight bend. There is a connection with the outside rein. She never holds the inside rein. She just massages it or plays with it, opens and closes her fingers. So now he puts his head down and lifts his back and gets round instead of being hollow, because we had to fix him for being so hollow all the time. So when Jody turns him, she never pulls on his face to turn him. All right, reverse. She just closes her inside hand, turns her seat and shoulders, and he changes the bend and turns. We never pull on his face. Because he's a very sensitive horse, if you pull on his face, his head's going to go up. He's going to become anxious. If you use a shank bit, he has no time to think. And he's not a very knowledgeable horse yet. So the shank bit gives him no time to comprehend the request and answer. The snaffle gives him time to comprehend the request and answer. All right, so she changes directions. So you see he turns from her turning her seat and her shoulders. She never pulls on his face. All right, so walk him square in front of the camera. Ask him to halt. So she will stop him by closing her fingers and stop riding. So she never pulls on his face. If you pull on his face to stop him, he is going to become anxious again. So you're going to have to work on practicing stopping with your seat. She just closes her fingers and stops. We'll do it again. All right, ask him to halt. She just closes the fingers, stops riding. If she asks him to back up, she will not pull on his mouth. She touches his mouth and rolls her pelvis backwards. He follows her seat backwards. His head should go down. There. She never pulls back or leans back and pulls on his mouth. Because he's a sensitive horse, he's going to get upset if you pull on his tongue. And actually, any horse should be that way. To ask him to leave, she very gently squeezes her calves and gives her hands forward. So he leaves with his head going down instead of up. If she leans forward or kicks him, his head's going to go up. All right, when you feel he's ready, Jody, and you have him, and she would never ask him to go to gait until she has him in this very soft posture. See how long the top of his neck looks? And he's lifted his back, and his hind legs are stepping up under him. She's going to ask him to go up the gate. When he goes up the gate, he shouldn't throw his head up. His head should stay down. If he throws his head up, he's lost his balance. At this stage of his life, we let him gait slow. We're not going to make him gait fast right now because he doesn't have the muscle or the knowledge or the balance to gait fast without losing his balance, and that's going to cause anxiety. All right, ride him forward to your hands so she doesn't pull on him, and ask him to walk. So she never pulls on his mouth to walk. She just quits riding forward and rides walk in her brain. So she doesn't do a lot with his face. It's all about her seat. All right, reverse him and ask him to go up the gate in the other direction. And he should keep his head right there for this stage of his life. You know, he can bring his head up as he changes his balance as the years go by, but he's a baby in his knowledge right now. That's a very nice trail riding gait. Right now, if you ask him to go much faster than that, he's going to lose his balance and become anxious. He's got to develop muscle and balance before he can dance faster. All right, ride him forward to walk again. And so keep walking. This horse knew nothing about how riders ask him to do things. His whole life he's just been pulled around by his face and pushed with the legs. So we have taught him the left rein talks to his left front leg, the right rein talks to his right front leg, her calves talk to the hind legs, each one. So Jody, can you make this horse take his hind end to your right, a turn on the forehand? So that his hind end, now bring his shoulders left. So her outside rein comes on. He understands that she's talking to his front feet. So he moves his front feet and brings his shoulders around. All right, put him in a left bend. Take his hips right. Now bring his shoulders left. Outside rein brings his shoulders and walk off. Stop his left front foot. Pick his left front foot up and have him set it back. And stop. Only his left front foot. Now pick his right front foot up. Do you see that she can control each foot because she understands the aids? And if you want a more thorough description of how to give the aids, they're on our DVDs. Can you take his weight back? Pick his right front foot up and have him set it right. She takes his weight back, picks his right front foot up, and has him set his shoulders right. Take his weight back, pick his left front foot up, and have him set his shoulders left. And pay him. And we always, at this stage of his life, whenever we ask him to do something, we give him time to stop and digest it so he can comprehend what we're teaching. If we immediately go to something else, we don't give him time to comprehend. Okay, one thing that we have done a lot with him to teach him to get his balance and not drop his shoulders, we've taught him to turn counter bent, which just teaches him to be more in the bridle. We also, before I forget, have ridden him a lot with other horses because he didn't deal well with other horses when he came. So we ride him with other horses. So she has him looking right and turn left. So he's turning counter bent. All right, and walk off. Now put him in a left bend and ask him to turn right, looking left. So he's learned to turn counter bent. It just makes him softer in the bridle and teaches him to get off his shoulders. When he came, he was very tense in his shoulders because he's been ridden in big bits and overtucked, bent in the third vertebrae, so he locked up in his shoulders. So we've tried to loosen his shoulders up by teaching him things like this, like turning counter bent. It's also important to ride him with other horses. He's got to learn to deal with that. Now that he doesn't have a headache anymore, we're actually able to turn him out with other horses. All right?